My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual, a gentleman who's very much the voice of football, none other than the great Andy Paschalidis. Welcome, Andrew, to this conversation.
Great to join you, mate. Thanks for the invitation.
So tell us, Andy, how did you fall in love with our great game?
Actually, public school in suburban Sydney. The local club, Hurlston Park Wanderers, actually had some flyers they had presented to the school about joining a junior club. So I asked my dad. I was 9 years old, and he was all for it because he used to take me, obviously, to watch Paschalidis, which is now Sydney Olympic, back in the day, against Harpias and Harcoas and Marconis and whatnot. So that passion started there. And ironically, training at Hurlston Park Wanderers was 2 nights a week. It fell on the same nights as Greek school. And obviously, being a multicultural background, you know, your parents want you to keep that tradition going. But my dad gave me that choice, ironically enough, that I could leave Greek school. So my Greek is very poor. My football is probably poorer. But he gave me the green light, which is a real surprise in so many ways. So that's where the journey started. The passion for the game started then. And I actually started as a striker, and I didn't do too badly. And then one day our goalkeeper was unavailable, and I just put my hand up. I went in goals, and it went really well, even though I was probably the shortest player in the team.
Yes.
And it just kicked off from there. And in that journey, in the early days, I was privileged enough to play rep football for the Canterbury Association. I was the number 2 keeper behind a guy called John Koska, whose father was our coach. And Ian Holmes, who ended up working for Football Australia and Football New South Wales, was our manager. And there was a guy by the name of Peter Raskopoulos, who was our captain.
Great.
Incredible. Once he left us, he went straight into first grade in the old NSL. When that started, he obviously was a shining light. Those memories were golden, because what I loved about the junior structure back then is that you were selected within your district. So basically, they looked at all the players within that association, and if you were good enough, you made it. And as it would turn out, we would win a state title against all odds, beating the mighty St George and also Sutherland along that way. And I'll never forget, Manfred Schaefer was presenting the medals on that day, and St George were playing us in the final. And he would have expected, and that was just after the World Cup of '74, he would have expected to present them to St George, but as it turned out, Canterbury, against all odds, won it. And that was a trigger point for me to try and see how I could go as a footballer. But as I would find out, I was travelling to Apia to trial with them, and they were using me against their number 1 keeper, who was about 6 inches taller. And I didn't tell my dad. I borrowed my mate's bike, and I would ride about 8 kilometres to the trials. And in the end, it didn't work out. I kept playing. And then futsal or indoor soccer, as it would turn out, would start to be my journey. And I would end up playing for my state and for my country in 1984 and travel overseas. And my debut and my solitary cap actually was against New Zealand in 1984. And at that time, I was working at Australian Soccer Weekly, and I knew that, you know, I'm not going to make it at that elite level as a footballer, but maybe I could, start off a journey in the media, and that was incredible the way that rolled. And it happened very quickly. In 1983, I got a cadetship with Australian Soccer Weekly, and this is all before internet, mobile phones and all that. And I was covering the New South Wales State League, and I was looking after Johnny Warren's page. He had a whole page, and that's when I first met Johnny. And then things happened rapidly. I was going to radio school. During high school, I was commentating rugby league and football games. I had a dream of being a commentator. I wanted to get into the media. My marks weren't good enough, so I couldn't study journalism at uni. But I kept ploughing away. And incredibly, in 1984, Les Murray called me. And I'd been meeting the SBS guys because I was at Soccer Weekly for 2 years. And he basically said, look, I know you want to be a commentator. I'm not happy with what we're getting out of Wollongong. Can you go down to Wollongong and commentate a game between Apia and Wollongong around round 12 of the NSL in 1984? And Les was very forthright and straight with me and said, look, if your commentary is good enough, I'll use it in the Olympic Airways highlight show. I remember that 1 hour show on Monday night. So I was excited because it wasn't lost on me, because I went to Wollongong. That was where my father first settled, like so many migrants, worked at the steelworks. That's where Les Murray's family settled as refugees. And I had family down there where I could go down, visit them, call a game. If it works, it works. As it turned out, it was a 3-0 result for Apia. A gentleman by the name of John Bradley. He hit this dipping volley into the win at Taraji Park, and it was an unbelievable goal. And typically Andy went crazy with it. It was used on the Channel 4 News in Wollongong, which is the local network. Les Murray used the commentary, called me into the office a couple of days later and said, I want you to call all the games out of Wollongong for the rest of the season. So it was probably the most pivotal moment of my media career that day, because you're not to know what's to follow. You're just dreaming like any young person would. I think I was just 21, about to turn 22. So it was just a rapid rise from that. So I feel blessed in so many ways, because I ended up getting a really prominent radio role with 2GB, who was the breakthrough station back in the day. You know, they had John Laws and Mike Carlton and famous people on that network. I was a rookie journalist. And ironically, the first thing I did for 2GB, I was thrown in to do updates on the Sheffield Shield cricket final of 84-85 at the SCG, New South Wales versus Queensland, where, you know, Carl Rackman, Jeff Thompson, the Wars, so many famous cricketers. I ended up calling the last hour of that game because the ABC switched to Parliament House. So all of a sudden, 702 is ABC, 2GB is 873. So once you move along the dial, you go to 2GB and there's this rookie, Andy Paschalidis, calling a cricket game. And it won a media award. I got amazing publicity, and wow, the roller coaster started from there pretty much.
I think the people don't realise that people outside the game have the passion for the game. That's why they're still passionate outside the game, whether they'd be administrators, commentators, coaches, etc. And I think it's notable the fact that you made representative soccer and were able to play, because representative soccer, it's a decent level, right? You're with at a teenage level, you're with the best kids, what they would call now NPL, and a teammate of yours, Raskopoulos, went on to play for the Socceroos, obviously, you know, Sydney Olympic great, and you've touched on so many things. But the one thing that I would, if I could associate a word with your commentary, would be passion. The one thing, and a very authentic nature. You wouldn't hide behind the sort of, you would let it out. And whenever you would commentate, I would find, okay, this guy believes exactly what he's saying, right? So I think that's what the general public loves about the historic commentators: authentic voice, and for you, you ooze passion. Tell us that those early days, you're sitting in Wollongong. I take it by yourself, right? There's not a team of people, right?
Just one camera. And here's a funny story about that day, that first game. It's not a stadium. Taraji's not a stadium. The main stadium wasn't available that season for Wollongong. So I'm basically on a chair, sitting on top of the canteen / dressing rooms. And I'm sitting there with the official team sheet, and that used to come out in 3 or 4 copies.
Yes.
And I've got little notes, and I've got my team sheet, and I'm just getting ready for what, for me, at that stage of my life, was the greatest moment of my life in so many ways. About 5 minutes before kickoff, I turned around. Someone had said something below. I turned around, and my team sheet just blew off the roof. And I was panicking. I was screaming out to the referee, "Please wait, I need that team sheet." And when you're young, you have no fear. So you know you want to test yourself. I've always lived by the mantra that because there was no textbook, you listen to other commentators and try and learn off them. And as it would turn out, I would end up working with some amazing commentators, from your Martin Tylers through to now in the last few years, the last 6 years, I've been a lead commentator in India, where the global reach of the game is incredible, into 84 countries. First game I did 2 seasons ago was watched both internally and externally out of India by 31 million. The first game of the season, I've called 3 finals there. They want me back again. I work with John Helm up there, and he's been to 8 or 9 World Cups. So you try to learn off all these guys, but ultimately the way I've treated commentating is that treat it like you're a fan, how you would react as a fan. Now, when I watch games, I'm very restless, like a lot of people. I can't sit down and just clap, clap, clap. I get passionate like everyone else. So my feeling is, don't state the obvious, just lift the level to the level that you should, depending on what happens on the pitch. Because, football fans, and I'm one of them. People watching are like me. I'm blessed to be able to be sort of driving the bus, and they're the passengers with me, and we're on this unique journey. And I was fortunate that at that time I had that opportunity, and obviously I think Mike Hill was the lead commentator for several years at SBS, and I started, rising. And the irony for me was, after 2 years at 2GB, I was in the SBS studios, and I'd be doing commentaries on the weekend, writing some links, doing some segments with Les on a show called Soccerama. And they were starting a new show called Sport Report Australia, which would be the first one of its kind, a midweek sports show that was national coverage. And they were looking for a female presenter for this new show. And I was in the SBS offices when they were doing all their auditions. And Les turned around as a joke and said, "Oh, why don't you jump in front of the camera there and do an audition?" So I just jumped in there, read the auto cue as best as I could. And the head of sport calls me in. I'm like, 2 days later, I come into the SBS office and go straight to the head of sports. He sits me down. He goes, "Andy, look, we've been looking for a female presenter, but we just haven't found the person we're after. And we like the way you did your audition. And we'd like to offer you the job of Sport Report Australia host."
How good's that?
Oh, it floored me, and I'm loyal. Wherever I work, I tend to work for a long time. I like to put in the hard yards and really deliver for any organisation I work with. And I had to go into 2GB. At that time, we had become the #1 station, and I was doing the sport. I was going to so many different sporting events. I was working with some tremendously talented people. I was in awe of them in so many ways. And I had to go in there and say, "Look, I've got to leave. I've got a full-time position now at SBS." And they were so complimentary, because I replaced a guy called John Harker. They had a national competition to find the next sports voice. He got the job, but he was snapped up by Channel 7. So within 2 years, I was snapped up by SBS. And when I got that job at 2GB, I was actually interviewed by Greg Hartley, a famous rugby league referee. He was part of the Zorba and Hollywood commentary team. And I was surprised that he picked me, because I thought they would go with someone with a rugby league background. But as he said to me at the time, he goes, and mind you, when I did that cricket commentary, Peter Peters and Zorba Zorba, they called him, and he's a Wollongong boy as well. His family settled there. Him and Greg Hartley nicknamed me Alphabet. So in that cricket commentary, they would throw to me every hour for an update, and he'd go and we'll cross down to Andy Alphabet, shorten your name. And I just said on air, I said, Zorba, that's my name I'm born with. I don't care. I said, call me whatever you like. I said, it's just a name. But it's also been a good name because it's a unique name that not many people would know.
Yes.
You know, my family tree obviously is of Greek background, and my dad's people are from North Turkey. They were there for hundreds of years, and sadly, you know, they were part of a people along with the Assyrians, the Armenians, that were part of that genocide. And what that teaches you when, you know, you're a descendant of people of that background is to take opportunity, to work hard, like all multicultural parents did with their kids, like yourself and so many others. We were always taught a strong work ethic. And I started working at the age of 10. We had a fruit shop mixed business in Canterbury. I would go to the markets with my dad 3 or 4 days a week. I ended up selling Big League Rugby League magazine at the Footy for 4 years. I did paper runs. I just had a strong work ethic, and that's why it's sort of sustained me through my life. It was just a wonderful decade at SBS, you know, and mind you, it's not lost on me. I mean, I posted a tribute to Les Murray on LinkedIn. It's been just over 4 years since we lost Les. I put it on Twitter and Facebook, and it's got thousands of views. It just shows you, because at that time we're just sort of pioneers, because I've gone from like any weekend warrior playing football on a Saturday with your team, where at Hurlstone Park I used to sit there and watch the all age play with 200 or 300 people, and then at 17 I'm playing all age with these guys that I was watching as a little kid. So now I'm playing with these guys, and then after the game they'd have the beers and all that, and I'd be like looking at my watch going, hey guys, I've got to go. They go, where are you going, Andy? I go, I've got to get home for World Soccer. I want to see what the birthday tribute is at the end of the show that Les will always throw to. And would you believe, within a matter of a handful of years, I'm working with Les Murray and John Warren and everyone else. So I've been fortunate to have those opportunities, but you've got to make those opportunities yourself. Things don't just fall in your lap. You can't. Even in that radio, in chasing that radio job, I actually applied to 6 radio stations, and I was very close to getting a gig with Today FM. There was a head of news guy there, Warren Burr. He loved my voice, but he just couldn't find a slot for me. And when I got the job at 2GB, he got in touch and said, Andy, this is the start of a great journey for you. At that time, I'm just thinking, I've got a gig. I'm going to be on radio. You know, it was so funny, because when I met my wife at a famous nightclub in Sydney called Stallions or the Roundabout, I went out, and then a couple of first date, I took her to Belmore RSL. My mate was working the bar, so I was getting free drinks, loaded her up on a bourbons. I had a couple of beers, and I took her to the launch of Sydney Olympic. She was probably the only blonde chick in there, right? She's a country girl from New South Wales. She's holding my hand like this. I'm thinking, she's keen on me. She goes, I was that bloody nervous. Everyone was talking in Greek. I didn't know what they were saying. But it just, you know, and she would say to me a couple of weeks later, she said, what do you actually do? Because I didn't tell her outright. She goes, are you on radio? Are you famous? I said, I'm not famous. I've just got a cadetship with 2GB. She goes, no. She goes, people are talking about you. I said, I'm going out with this guy called Andy Paschalidis. He's a soccer commentator. And she goes, you are famous. I said, no, I'm just a voice. But at that time, you not that I took anything for granted. You know you're impacting, particularly with SBS, because it's national. So whenever I would go in a state, it was incredible how people would react to me, because what they saw on camera was what you would get off camera. I was no different. I've never been pretentious. I've never pretended to be someone famous or anything like that. I've always treated everyone respectfully. If someone choose my ear over a football conversation, and mind you, my wife would tell me over ensuing years, Jane became my wife, obviously, interesting. Wedding of 420. There was only 40 from her side of the family. And Les Murray and Harry Michaels were on the bridal table. But I just, I've always been respectful of having that opportunity. And I tell I tell a lot of people that come through, and I've helped a lot of people get into the industry. And one of my greatest honours is I went to radio school with Michael Tomalaris. Mm-hmm. So I helped him get a job with a suburban newspaper. Then I got him into SBS. Similarly enough, as the years would unfold, I helped Mel McLaughlin be the first reporter on Football Stars of Tomorrow in 2006, and look at how her career has evolved. That gives me great joy. That always gives me great joy that I can help people follow their dreams and chase their dreams. And as it would turn out at SBS, I was the youngest ever commentator for National League, the youngest ever commentator for a Socceroos game, the youngest ever sports presenter on SBS. Remember, I was only it was October 1986. So at that time, I'm only 24 years of age, wet behind the ears, given such a big position, which would evolve into some fantastic roles at SBS as a presenter, a reporter, a commentator. But you know what? I've been blessed to commentate some great games, but one of the greatest joys I ever had was sitting next to Les as a rookie kid doing a NSL news update. That was my little segment with him, like a 5-6 minute segment. We'd bounce off each other. And it just made me appreciate the opportunity more so, because Les made you feel so comfortable. And, you don't realise at the time what it means. And as years go on, you see it now, because so many people on social media are saying to me now, those years, the three of you, and we were all different personalities, dynamics. Even now people are on social media or privately saying, Andy, you've got to be part of this new Channel 10 Paramount revolution. And I can't tell you, I've been told by them that I was on a short list. I missed the cut, which is a shame, because I still think I've got a lot to offer here in Australia. But as it's turned out, I've done 6 straight seasons in India. They want me back again. I'm more than happy to go back. I love that opportunity to be a lead commentator. And what, you said it earlier about what I do and what I bring, passion. And that's what the Indians love. But I love the people and the culture, and working with this unique team, as I've just done in a COVID bubble in Goa, where I commentated 38 games in 72 days and I had 36 COVID tests. Wow. I know about a lockdown, living in a hotel room, not being able to go outside of that bubble except on match days. But mind you, it was brilliant this season, just completed, because I was at the 3 venues we used to be there live. Because for the previous 3 seasons, I was calling off tube when everyone thought I was at the stadiums. I was at the studio in Mumbai calling off tube.
And it's definitely tougher calling off a reel than being at the ground and feeling the energy of the game, because when you're there, you get that sort of that panoramic view of the game, right? And so when you're on tube, you only get whatever the camera roll is, and so that's tough. So you touched on a couple of great names, and you would have had a number of great off-air conversations with Johnny Warren and Les Murray. So maybe you can tell the guys what they were like off camera.
Oh yeah, look. Les had that swagger about him. He'd come in, he was immaculately groomed, dressed. I used to go in the studio in shorts and a shirt, tie and jacket. But Les had that aura about him, but his door was always open to everyone. His knowledge of the game, his passion for the game, it rubbed off on everyone. We learnt so much. He was really the conductor in so many ways. One thing early early doors, I was on air with him and I said soccer. He let it go through to the keeper, but straight after the show, he pulled me over. He goes, Andy, do not ever call the world game soccer. It's football. Don't be fooled by these other sports, AFL and rugby league and rugby union. We are the true football. I never said soccer again on air. Johnny Warren, because I met him in 1983, he had his page, Captain Socceroo page. He knew that now at that time I was playing indoor football for New South Wales.
Mm-hmm.
Our under-19 team played in the seniors comp in Broken Hill of all places in '82 and won the national title for that age group. And I toured America in '83.
You'd be playing in goals or on the outfield?
In goals. I would end up playing on the field with Mark Kouzis in one competition. Another ex-Socceroo who I've always been close to, and he's I'll talk about that later about my charity because he's had heart surgery like Chris Kalantzis. But I was playing at a decent level, and then I got picked to play in New Zealand. I made my one and only cap because, in those days, the indoor setup was fantastic. And it transitioned from 84 to 85 to futsal. So I went to the first ever World Cup that Australia played in, just as the social director of that trip. But, I remember seeing Aitek Gench in 83. I saw this 16-year-old kid and I thought, this kid should be playing for Australia in outdoor, which he did. But I met Johnny then, and as it turned out, SBS started the James Hardy Indoor Soccer League, and it was a great competition for a couple of years. And Johnny was a driving force behind that. And I met Charlie Perkins through Johnny, who has such a rich history in the game and Indigenous Australia. He was such a leader. I remember with John and Charlie sitting down and having a conversation where Charlie just said to me, he goes, Andy, I just love what you do and how you do it. Don't change. And John was, the saddest thing on leaving SBS was I had to make a tough choice. It was difficult. At the World Cup in '94, I was having dinner with Mike Cockrell, God bless his soul, Martin Tyler, my cameraman Alberto Vengo, and we were having a discussion. And Martin Tyler actually apologised to me, and I was taken aback. I go, what do you mean? He goes, because you should be commentating here. You were doing all the lead-up games for Australia. They missed out, but you should be one of the 4 commentators here. And I said, no, it's okay. I understand how the metrics works. I was based in LA and San Fran, had crazy times there. Caught up with Paul Trimboli, Pele and Carlos Bellardo. And Trimmers crashed out in my room a couple of nights because I had 2 hotels booked for the whole tournament. It was cheaper to do that because I was travelling from LA to San Fran. And I said to Martin, I said, look, pay TV's chasing me and I like challenges. He goes, no, you've got to stay because you'll carry the baton once Les steps away from the main anchor role. I said, I'm not after that role. I said, that's Les's domain. Johnny's the expert. Les is the anchor. I'm the voice. I go, it's a perfect chemistry. But would you believe that last show on the ball, it was the first time they ever did it in front of a studio audience. On that day, we had Tom Anderson, we had Mike Cockrell, we had Tony Lambazetta, Les Scheinflug, Rudy Guddendorf, Adrian Alston, Johnny Warren. At the end of the show, Johnny does this sort of tribute to me, and it always rocks me thinking about it. He talked about how much of a joy it was to watch me evolve and the journey that I've taken. And he goes, we're going to miss you. But Andy, you're going to a new audience where you can sell the game to a new audience, and that's vital for the game to penetrate the total market. And you know what? He's 100% right, because I walked in there. They gave me a team sheet and said, can you go and call Sampdoria Lazio? I was calling Serie A, La Liga, UEFA Cup back then, obviously Cup Winners' Cup, World Cup qualifiers, Greek football. I did about 500 match commentaries off tube the first 3 years. And it wasn't until 1997 I got the chance to commentate Real Madrid, Barcelona, and then go and catch up with Mark Schwartz at Middlesbrough. Were playing Chelsea in the FA Cup final at Wembley. So I stayed with Mark, and Brian Robson let me do whatever I wanted to do. I went and interviewed Hull at Chelsea, and, you know, that was the only game I did live at the Camp Nou. And it was so ironic because there's a company called MediaPro that looked after the global rights, and they loved me. I'd taken a video highlight package on VHS of my commentaries of that season, and to give it to Sir Bobby Robson. So anyway, he does this press conference. I've got this 6'3" Romanian Bulgarian cameraman, Dennis, strut straight into Barcelona's press room, and he just literally barged in. Everyone looked at him, plonked his camera front and centre. And I'm like standing behind him going, yeah, mate, we're here. The Aussies are here. I go, but he's not Aussie. It doesn't matter. So at the end of the press conference, I went up to Mr. Robson. I said, Mr. Robson, I said, hi, I'm Andy Paschalidis. I'm from Fox Sports Australia. We're doing the game live into Australia for the very first time. We're doing it live on location. I'm doing a half-hour preview. Can I just get a couple of questions in? He looks at his watch, and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to say no. It's fire away. 2 questions. At the end of it, I went, Mr. Robson, here, take this videotape. This is just what I do back home. So 2 days later, we're at the stadium. I said to Dennis, get some shots of the team coming in off the bus. So the team's, you know, you can imagine what it's like at Camp Nou. It's just, it's like a concrete jungle on the outside, but this amazing stadium that you go into. And we've been filming all around there. I did intros from the top, and Robson grabs me and goes, young man, fantastic commentary. And for one of the rare times, I didn't know what to say. The coach of Barcelona, the esteemed Sir Bobby Robson, has just given me the most amazing endorsement. So I just waved. I go upstairs to my commentary position, and God bless them. And mind you, around that time, I almost sold Barcelona on setting up Barca TV.
Wow, yes, yeah.
There was a guy called Gabriel Masferol, one of the vice presidents. He loved it. He loved the concept. And unfortunately, he had a falling out with the president, which tends to happen at those big clubs, and he walked away. But I get to the commentary position. I look around. They put me right in the middle. And apparently that position there was taken by the German commentators. And then, you know, they've got Italian commentators, German, foreign commentators in their own on a tier in front of the foreigners. So the German guy looks around at me and he goes, what are you doing there? And I was like, this is where they put me. He goes, that's my position, blah, blah, blah. Who's watching football in Australia? And I was taken aback because I was there on my own. Dennis was downstairs filming, getting different segments that we could use. So I just stood my ground. I stood up. I said, listen, I go, this is where I am. We broadcast back home. I don't give a rat's ass what you think, basically. I didn't say rat's ass. I said the other F-bomb word.
Yeah.
A couple of the Spanish guys got up and applauded. But you know what? It was such a shame. It was a dud game. It wasn't. It didn't live up to the expectations, unfortunately. Sometimes that happens. It's hit and miss. But it sort of, you know, then flying into England and, you know, because I've always been tight with Mark, and because, you know, you think of Mark Schwarzer. Mark Bosnich doesn't go to Canada with Robert Zabika, this 19-year-old kid who had a standout season at Marconi, is thrown in as the number 2 just to, you know, experience, sit on the bench. Zabika gets sent off. Schwarzer goes in, does well, holds his position. Tony Franken would become the number 2 keeper for that game against Canada. We all talk about that penalty shootout against Uruguay in 2005,
but that great penalty shootout against Canada, yeah, he did a great job. I think he saved 2 penalties.
Yeah,
was it 2? Yeah.
That whole game, you know, Jurakovic and Farina's overhead, and, you know, that changed his life. See, moments in football can change your life. And then Schwartz would go on to be one of the most decorated goalkeepers in the history of the Premier League, one of the top 10 foreigners in terms of appearances. Sadly, that time when I was with him and his lovely wife Paloma, who went to high school with my sister, of which the same high school Tim Cale would go to, who's married to one of my best friend's niece, and Tim's brother is married to that same best friend's daughter. That's how close that whole thing becomes. Mark was cup-tied. They lost that FA Cup. Di Matteo scored in the first minute. They lost the League Cup final and they got relegated, all in the one season. But I that was one of the great trips for me. But yeah, I mean, SBS set me up in so many ways. To be part of that history of the game where so many brilliant players came through. They talk about foreigners playing in the A-League, but when you look back, you look at the Nastevskis, the Zelko Adzic, the Estavillos, the Ojakovs, the Catholices, Rosic's, there was so much quality. The Vidmar brothers were coming through, the Ocons, the Zeliches, that generation was coming through. It was just an honour. I was there commentating at Summer Street when a 19-year-old kid by the name of Mark Viduka, you might be familiar with him, he came on. I'll never forget filming a segment at Mark's house. That, outside of commentating NSL, I used to have so much fun doing feature stories on the players to show people they are like us.
Yeah, the human element of football.
And I'm not going to be an egotist here, but I will back myself 150%. I did it in a way like no other, even to this day. The way I had the confidence of the players and the respect of the players that they knew. And Frank Arok, out of all the coaches, was perhaps, and Rasic, that they knew. They would say to me, Andy, you do whatever you want. I would be in team meetings on World Cup qualifying days at the hotel, on the bus, in the dressing room. One of the funniest interviews I ever did was with Mirko Basic, God rest his soul, and he was such a good coach for Northern Croatia. I interviewed him about Viduka very early in the piece. So Mark Viduka had a fantastic game today. Viduka, good player. Today's game, incredible how you played. Good team, good player. What about the future of Mark Viduka? Very good future, good player. Thank you, Mirko Basic. Back to you, then. We had, when you think about going to all those derbies, whether it was Heidelberg, South Melbourne, Melbourne, Croatia, South Melbourne, Preston, South Melbourne, Sydney Olympic, Marconi, Sydney, Croatia, Marconi, Adelaide, Adelaide City, West Adelaide. You knew you were on a roller coaster ride. I've said it before. Look, the ethnic rivalry obviously brought that to the fore. Yes, we had bad moments. We did have riots. We had, sadly, politics came into football. But that's what upset me, seeing those incidents over those years, because it became front page news. It became and you go to a one-day cricket game, there's 70 arrests for drunken disorderly behaviour. There's 3 arrests at a football game, and all of a sudden we're the enemy.
It was I think there was an anti-football sentiment, and they would
they fear us.
Yeah.
They fear us, and so they should. Look at the Matildas. Their last game, that amazing quarter final at the Olympics. 2.24 million Australians watched that. Not 80,000. When I did a Rally Rasic interview live on Facebook at 2:00 on a Thursday afternoon last year, we had over 200,000 people watched it. So basically, if you have the product if you have the personalities, people will watch.
Absolutely.
You know,
and fantastic testimony. I was one of those people, one of those 200,000 people watching. Fantastic product. How you put that together, that testimony.
Sash, look, Channel 10 need new product. They need to reinvent the wheel in a way. I've got a load of experience. I've got some great ideas. I've got a grassroots show built around one of our highest profile players. I can't go into it. It will be snapped up. Who snaps it up now? The World Cups, Women's World Cups on Optus.
Yes. Paramount
10 have got a load of football content, which is fantastic because you need free-to-air coverage.
Yes.
With all due respect to Fox, I was at Fox for almost 9 years. Sadly, I'll say it outright, I got knifed. I got knifed in 2003. I didn't get that chance to be involved in the A-League, and I know that I would have been a frontline commentator for them. My job description at Fox in all that period of time was there to oversee all the football content. Now, I've been told privately that the reason they didn't re-sign me in 2003 was because my wife came in with me when I was looking at renegotiating my deal. Anyway, look, that's water under the bridge. I believe in karma. When someone does something bad to you, it will come back and bite them in the backside. I stay positive. I look at, being part of Football Stars of Tomorrow, creating a show like that. It gave the opportunity for Mariana Rudin, Stephanie Brantz, Elise Perry, Mel McLaughlin to be involved and to learn and to take the next step in their journey. It's funny, as I get older, people say, normally you slow down. It's the reverse. I look at this last season. Can you imagine? I've called all these games in India. So basically my day would consist of wake up, shower, coffee, go downstairs to the eating area, our designated eating area, where 60 of us and the whole crew, cameramen, technicians, the whole thing, commentators, presenters, 20 staff. We all lived in the hotel. We weren't allowed to exit the hotel unless we went to the stadium. And then there's another bubble. I couldn't go and shake hands with 10 Aussies played there this year. That's an alarm bell. Previous season, 2 Aussies. I couldn't shake hands with Dave Williams or Jordan Murray or James Donaghy or Joel Pianese. I would actually be calling to them from the commentary position, and we'd FaceTime each other on match days to give me the insights. And that was 3.5 months. A serious, like, we're in lockdown mode now. So, I have no fear of lockdown. It's frustrating in so many ways. And I feel for India because after I finished my stint, I returned home and I quarantined in Melbourne for 2 weeks. Ironically, I had two interviews. This is something I don't think I told you. I just missed the cut for the Survivors show on Channel 10. I was interviewed by the head of talent and by the executive producer while in quarantine in Melbourne because I'd undergone this physical transformation, lost weight, started training hard, and to have my health and well-being and be on song for the commentary. And I look at how football is evolving in India. I don't understand why we don't have a better relationship, a stronger tie football-wise. Look at our ties in cricket between both countries. And India has so much potential for Australians to be involved in it. As it turned out, I mentioned 10 Aussies played last season, but the total of A-League players that were there, it was 18 players. And obviously Adam Lafondra was part of the title-winning team, Mumbai City, owned by City Football Group, of which Melbourne City, A-League champions, of which Manchester City. So it just shows you how far the game is spreading now.
The and that's the thing. We've got a great grassroots, and the one good thing going for us in this country is more boys and girls play this sport than any other sport in Australia. So we've got to capture these hearts and minds. So when they're playing, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, that we don't lose them once they hit adulthood, right? We convert those same people who are playing the game to watch our product, right? But we need to exude passion. We can't just be surgical about our feelings about the game. There needs to be an authentic. And the one thing that grabs me about commentary now, we're almost creeping into our sports commentary. And I have my mates who call me. So most of my mates are lovers of football. And I'll get private messages going, what was that? You hear an inference about, some other sport coming into our game, and I think, why did that commentator just make that inference, right? And it's a little bit strange. I think there needs to be my call to whoever's associated with the game, get football people involved, okay? You'll get a more authentic product and you get more viewership, because those same people, there's so many people that are turning off because they'll say, I want to watch football, and we won't call out the name, but this person's commentating and I refuse to be frustrated by their commentary, right? So I think it's very important that...
Look, I totally agree. Sash, I think everyone's got a matter of opinion in terms of who they like or who they don't like. I think when you commentate, what you need to remember, there's a few things. Don't state the obvious. Don't overdo it. Let the game breathe. I love, there's scenarios in India where there's been some fluent passing movements and you just let it go. Let it go, then build up as they start attacking. You can overdo it. You can go into stats too much. You can talk about anecdotal things about players. At the end of the day, like say that game that the Olarus played against Argentina, if I was calling that, I would have been standing up. Firstly, in India, all the co-commentators, everyone now stands up with me. As I said, pretend you're at the game, because particularly when you're in a lockdown environment like India, where there's no crowds, and you're using crowd effects in your cans to build up the coverage, at least stand up and be passionate and be absolutely excited. But, people that are watching now are so well educated about football. This is their life. They live it. They breathe it 24/7. And everyone that's involved in commentating football or sport in general should always remember that as much as you've got information in front of you pertaining to a game, and I've posted on social media from India where I show my match sheets. I had 53 Google Drive documents that I shared. I've got the stats, I've got the history, the player profiles. I wrote my notes, this, that, the other. I would probably use 5% of it. That 5% I use has got to be a point of difference that someone doesn't know, that it's not something that's well known, but it will add to the commentary. I know some of the great commentators, what they do? They've got the post-its and they have got their one lines to use in the event of something happening on the pitch. No way, Jose. I would never do that. I just react to what happens on the pitch. I remember one of my favourite commentaries was the World Youth Cup 93. There was a goal by Chris Faklaris, which is well known. Still trying to find it. They played Turkey and they absolutely wiped them. And he scored this screamer. And I called him, what a screamer from Chris Faklaris. And everywhere I used to go for years, even now people come up again, Andy, what a screamer by Chris Faklaris. And Stan Lazaridis used to use it at Birmingham training. I actually went to Birmingham and I got introduced to Kenny Cunningham, Robbie Savage, and I've been blessed to meet so many great football people. And he turns around and goes, that's Faklaris. And they turned around and got me to do a Faklaris commentary with them. But my favourite out of that tournament, believe it or not, was we played England not too far away from where I live, at the Sydney Football Stadium. And Julian Joe Chin, it was 1-1. Julian Joe Chin took the defence on. He went straight through, I think, Aaron Holston, came around the keeper. And I go, will it be the winner? It should be. And he hits the ball, hits the back of the net. So I go, will it be the winner? It should be. He hits it, hits the back of the net. And I go, and it is. They're the moments that you don't sort of have them in the back of your mind that you're going to be prepared to say. So you always react to what happens. And it was a breathtaking playoff. Obviously, we missed out. We finished fourth in that tournament, but actually, that period of the game, oh my God, from the NSL, from the Socceroos, from the young Socceroos, remember 91, Portugal, 93 here, 92 Olympics.
Yep.
Someone said in the coverage, first Australian team to make the semi-finals of the Olympics. I almost headbutted my TV. I go, did you not remember what happened at Barcelona, for God's sake? I mean, what's going on there? But, yeah, commentating's a craft. There's no textbook. You listen to other commentators, but no one's the same. There are people that probably hate my commentary. No one's perfect. I read something on social media yesterday. I think Mike Carlton put up something about Basil Zempilas, sort of a critique about commentary. And I think he's done an amazing job. I've never met Basil. I just think he's done a fantastic job in the swimming. But then I saw all the negative comments. I was like, my jaw was down here. There was 60 or 70 negs. It just shows you. It's all about opinions.
Yeah.
All about opinions.
Yeah. And I think there's people jump on that negative bandwagon too, right? So to get a compliment, right, there's probably 10 other people thinking the same thing when you get complimented out of the blue. And this is what this conversation is really about, because you were talking about your early days at Australian Soccer Weekly. I remember getting my dad to buy that newspaper religiously every week because we wanted to see.
What? You never bought Soccer Action? What's going on?
Oh, yeah. So we'd buy, my dad would buy the El Globo, right, to see the scorers' results, right? Because the El Globo had a section in there that covered junior football here in Victoria, right? We couldn't read the rest of the paper, but who cares? There was like 2 pages in the El Globo that, if you scored a goal, your name would be in the paper, you're like in six font. And this is what this conversation is really about.
Sash, sorry to jump in. When I was at Soccer Weekly, my remit, I had 2 pages for the New South Wales State League, right? And then it had the inter-urban competition. So you had 3 divisions, then 5 inter-urban divisions. I would be ringing up Football New South Wales on a Sunday night, handwriting all the scores, typesetting it in. I would have gone to a main game in the first division, and then I would ring up the other clubs and write match reports for all the other top division games and format all that, and people would be waiting at their newsagent, because we printed on Monday night. They'd be waiting at their newsagent first thing Tuesday morning so they can go straight to the tables, scores, scorers, what you've just said. And it's just incredible how many of us, and look, I'm a cricket tragic. I won't hide that at all. I played cricket till I was 47. I used to love picking up the Sunday paper and looking at all the grade scores and seeing who got the runs, who got the wickets and whatnot. But it's interesting now, everything's
digitized.
Everything's here.
Everything's digitized. So this is what this conversation is about, really. It's about the digitization of our past, because you touched on it very briefly on how it seems like football started in November of 2005 on that penalty kick where John famously scored, right? And everything pre that, right, is this old soccer, right? And so what I want this conversation to be about is the amalgamation of our game, right? To be one game from the earliest Socceroos, and I've had the pleasure of speaking to a guy who's played in the 56 Olympics, all the way now to current A-League players. And so really what I'd like to see, because all that good work that was put into, the waiting and typesetting the documents, all of that is been largely lost, right?
Yeah.
And now everything is instant but digital. And so what it's about is recapturing that past and digitizing it. And typically in coaches or players' own voices. So maybe you can touch on that. You've been blessed to speak to many famous, legendary footballers and coaches. Maybe you can rattle off some of the names that you got to spend time with.
The first time I met Ferenc Puskás, and we all know what he did at South Melbourne, and forgetting that too for his country. I mean, he was part, and Les Murray was always so proud. The mighty Margas. Look, I was following Pele here. My job was to film Pele for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So he was at St George Stadium, and there was, kids on the field. He was being presented to all these different teams, and security guy stops me. This is where Pele was sitting with Puskás. I go, "What are you doing, mate?" This is the same security guy at St George Budapest games. He goes, "I've been told no one's allowed in there." I said, "We're filming Pele. We're doing like a mini doco on SBS. We're the official broadcast, blah, blah, blah." And he was playing hardball. Puskás turns around and he calls my name out in Greek. His Greek is so fluent. My Greek's poor. I don't even read or write it. I mean, I remember I gave up Greek school to be a footballer. But he turned around and calls out my name, "Andrea, Delado, come over here." I was like, Puskás, I never met him, right? I go, "Mate, I don't need to see Pele. I've been spending time with him. I'm going back to the hotel to interview him there." And he shook my hand. He basically said, "Keep up the good work." I didn't have a camera. I mean, the next night there was a function here at the Sydney Football Stadium for Pele. It was crazy. He was signing books at shopping centres, and I followed him everywhere. I sat there.
And the lines were massive. I remember the lines were massive.
Sitting there, I'm looking at Pele at the function, right? At this function at the Sydney Football Stadium. It was in the members area. Dawn Fraser, Greg Chappell, Ian Chappell, amongst a whole swag of people in a queue to get Pele's autograph. As I'm walking down, Ian Chappell grabs me and he goes, "Andy," he goes, "I've been watching Sport Report Australia. That's a good show, mate." And I go, "Thanks, Ian. Can I get your autograph?" After, how's this? Pele goes to me before he leaves. He goes, "Come in for breakfast at his hotel in the city. And we'll say our goodbyes and I'll sign anything that you want." I never hassled him to get anything signed. And I go to him, "Yeah, I'll do that." So I go there and I'm waiting. He'd been on an all-nighter. He walked in the hotel, had to rush up and get changed. He goes, "Jump in the limo with me to the airport." I go, "Listen, can I do one thing? My brother-in-law's here. Can my brother-in-law travel with you in the limo?" He goes, "Of course he can." So my brother-in-law travels from the city to the airport, which is about 20 minutes. He got shirts signed, all signed. I got a $50 note signed. And I said, "Can you sign it to my father, Chris?" So I framed it with black and white photos. A mate of mine, Chris Hummel, who's an ex-young Socceroo, he was in the 81 side. He was the number 2 keeper to Tony Franking. He's in the States. I think he offered me $1,000 for it. But I would end up meeting Pele at the World Cup of '94. I mean, I look back, Dalglish came to Australia to watch the Formula One in Melbourne with Freddie Shepherd, the chairman of Newcastle United. So I went to the press conference. I'd arranged to have an interview done with Dalglish and Robbie Slater. We were both down there. And my cousins Bill and George Lambropoulos that used to have some iconic venues on Chapel Street, from the old Pepper, Tribeca, Bennigan's, the Viper Room. So we met at Bennigan's, and you would know these places on Chapel.
Of course.
Unbeknown to me, the boys have gone out and got a birthday cake sorted for Kenny Dalglish. It was his 50th birthday. They brought it out. We had champagne, and we're filming all this. Kenny turns around. Andy, stop filming. I was like, oh, no, what have I done? He goes, I don't want any footage with alcohol. So at that time, he wasn't Sir Kenny. He was Kenny Dalglish, but obviously he's Sir Kenny. Freddie Shepherd leaned over to me. He goes, Andy, I've got something for you. I don't want to bring it out here in front of people. We'll do it at the end. Not a problem. My phone rings. Eddie Maguire. Andy, it's Kenny Dalglish in Chapel Street. He goes, can I come and meet him? I turned around to Freddie. I go, look, one of the most powerful media guys. He's busting. I said, I know that his family, his father is a mad Celtic fan. He used to watch me on Fox Sports. That's how Eddie introduced himself through football to me. Because I followed his career, because a lot of us came through that generation, particularly like Peter Overton's the newsreader here, Ray Hadley's the big radio guy, Bill Woods, ex-Channel 10. We all came through as rookie journalists in the 80s. In the 80s, so we'd see each other at different events. Eddie Maguire turns up with Ross Galbally, so I sit him next to Dalglish. Great lunch. Freddie turns around and goes, come over here. He gives me a jersey signed by Newcastle United. Right? As it would turn out, Andrew Koska, who I mentioned earlier, his brother John was our goalkeeper in that rep team, and his father was a coach. Andrew, an ex-Socceroo.
Yes.
I knew he was destined for greatness. He used to kick around with us. He was better than half our team, and he was 3 or 4 years younger. He was running Umbro Australia, and he goes, Andy, you're not going to believe that. Alan Shearer is contracted to come to Australia.
Wow.
And I've gone, he's just retired, all-time top scorer, Premier League of England. I go, oh, my God, what do you want me to do? You need help? He goes, I want you to sit down with me and format his whole itinerary. I know that you do sports travel, which is a story for another day, where I got burnt by Football Australia on a travel thing. We might have time for that story, but it's a bit of a negative that it happens. But anyway, because I stood up at a function in the Crown Casino and said that I felt that we should look internally in football for people to take key positions, and it came back and bit me in the arse, which is a real shame, because I still believe to the day it was right. And then it was vindicated by the fact that they tried to embrace old football, but we can lead to that. But so Shearer's coming to Australia. Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Auckland. Coaching clinics, shopping centre appearances, bit of golf, bit of this, bit of socialising. Shearer arrives in Melbourne. I'm there with Andrew. We're staying at St Kilda on the beach there. I'm doing radio, breakfast radio here for Sky Sports Radio and racing for almost 2 decades. I grab Shearer. I'm doing my thing at 7:25, and I give Shearer the phone. Yeah, I'm with Alan Shearer, blah, blah, blah. Alan's very diplomatic. Phone call finishes. He turns around and goes, one thing you need to learn, Andrew, you need to ask me beforehand whether I do anything like that again. Mate, the way he said it, I apologised for a good 2 minutes. As it would turn out, we had this amazing time. I got Damien Morrie to come to Sammy's at Glenelg, this seafood restaurant that Sammy, which is Stanos Reis' brother-in-law, was an owner with Phil Smythe and David Hooks, God bless his soul. I worked with Hooksy at Fox. We were the first group that came through pay TV. Shearer was supposed to play golf that day, but he stayed with Damien Morrie. I said, he's the all-time scorer here, and you're the all-time scorer. Frogger Morrie was just beside himself. We get into Sydney. We're supposed to go and check into the Star. We're flying over Sydney. He goes, I want to go to Bondi Beach. So we go to a place called Ravisi's. We didn't leave there till midnight. And I had Willie Mason and another footballer I can't think of. Willie played for Australia. Massive.
Yeah. Yep.
Monster, built like this.
Yep.
He comes up to me, because I've been blessed, because I do a lot of non-football things, fundraising, sports lunches and whatnot. And Willie comes in, he goes, Andy, is it possible for me to meet Alan Shearer? And I'm like, you're asking me, you're man. I go to Shearer, Shearer, and mind you, Alan Shearer is very good friends with David Boone, who I know. And Booney told me this before Shearer came to Australia at there was a rugby union function we were both guest speakers at, because their kids went to the same school at Durham. And this is how football intertwines. Like in India, Tendulkar, MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli is a part owner of FC Goa. They're all involved with football teams. I've stayed in hotels and flown with, and it's just insane how far the football family reaches. But you know what? At the end of that trip, I was at the airport. I started tearing up. I said, Alan, I've had such a great time, mate. I've had such a great time with you. We had a farewell dinner for him here in Sydney, and Les came, and Simon Hill and Slater and Stephanie Brance. He just said to me, he goes, I've had such a good time here. And I, this is football royalty, following Maradona around as well. That was incredible. He outpsyched us. When you know that our Socceroos are getting his autograph at the airport en route to Buenos Aires for the second leg, this is at the stopover in New Zealand, in Auckland. You know you're in trouble. You know you're in trouble. But it's been, for me, it's been incredible in so many ways. Like at the Euro Championships in 2000, I was there. Peter Hugg, who works with football in New South Wales, was heavily involved in the Olympics, and he basically said to UEFA, I'm there to source footage and to look at how it works, press, this, that. He was giving me VIP tickets. So I'm now in rooms, Sir Bobby Charlton, Sir Alex Ferguson, Johan Cruyff. I'm interviewing these guys. Ferguson came down after a game in Amsterdam, and ironically, I did a stand-up in Amsterdam, and Turkey had, I think, made the quarterfinals. And I needed some Turkish fans. So anyway, I did the stand-up. They're all cheering. And the guy that organised the fans, I went up to him. I said, listen, I go, meet me at the stadium tomorrow night. Meet me at the stadium. I have 2 tickets for you and your friend. And that was all through Peter Hugg, right? Unbeknown to me, this guy had driven from Istanbul to Amsterdam with his friend over 2 days with no tickets. He sat with me. And Andrew Osadi, I got Andrew some tickets. This guy was crying and hugging me, and it was just, this is what football does. After that game, I met up with my cameraman. Ferguson comes down the lift. McLaren's with him. I met the Manchester United guys. They opened the stadium here. This Aussie Stadium. Remember, the saddest day, one of the saddest days for me, that was when Colosimo got topped by Andy Cole.
Yeah.
And his career was never the same, even though he went back to Europe and went to Man City and that. Beckenbauer was saying he's the libero. He was 19, look where he was, and then he gets chopped. But Ferguson comes down the lift. I look at McLaren. I said, you owe me a favour. I said, I want an interview with Ferguson. He goes, I'll ask. He calls me over. I think it was the most nervous I've ever been with anyone in football, because this guy has this aura, this amazing aura. And I walked up. I go, hello, Mr. Ferguson. And he looks at me. You're Greek, aren't you? I went, I'm Australian. Yeah, my parents are Greek. He goes, I love Greece. I don't like Retsina, but I like some of the wines there. I'm like, I didn't know what to say. I asked him a question about the game, and I asked him another question. And he stops me like that. I've asked the wrong question. Unbeknown to me, behind me, about 6 cameramen had rushed over. He just went like that, flicked them away, like that, and just went, turned around. They all moved back, and inside of myself, I'm thinking, I'm just this young reporter from Fox Sports Australia. Sir Alex Ferguson is telling everyone to F off.
Mm.
And I thanked him profusely. I remember in the 94 World Cup, because I was traveling up and down LA, San Fran, so I was covering Brazil, Sweden, Romania. There was quite a few things happening there. But the one thing, remember Brazil were coming out and doing those tours that Johnny Warren organised, in 92. So I got to meet the coaching staff. And one thing that I always used to do, being a goalkeeper coach, I'd watch all the goalkeeper coaches and take notes and footage and use that later on. So I got friendly with the Brazilian coaching crew. So I saw them, and I'll never forget this, in San Francisco. Brazil were not going to train or do any media unless 4,000 fans were allowed into their training session, where they were doing live, in Brazil. I think it's Global, I think, 24/7 live about Brazil in the World Cup. Anyway, after training, I'm waiting around with about 80 or 90 journos. I said, the goalkeeper coach comes over and goes, under now. He goes, I get you Romario. What? He goes, Romario. 2 or 3 questions. The informed player.
Yeah.
Romario comes over. I say, hello, how are you? He goes, I'm very good. And everyone's being pushed away. So I do this interview. He's responding in Portuguese. I thought, we're SBS, we can subtitle it. At the end of it, I go, you speak English? He goes, this is easier for me. I reach into my bag. My wife, God bless her, I said, get me something that's quintessentially Australian that I can give to people that I interview or that I meet. And I do it to this day. She got me these fridge magnets, and they're ceramic fridge magnets of koala bears, of one playing tennis, one with balloons. So I would give these out to the players. So I gave it to Romario. He looked at it, he goes, I go, you put on your fridge. It's a magnet. I go, take 2. I would do that with Colombia, with Valderrama and Escobar. I was in a lift with them. I did it with Faustino Asprilla's father. I was in a bar at the hotel waiting for the press conference for his team. And I didn't know that I was with Asprilla's father. But the guy next to him is a Miami real estate agent from Colombia. Nice guy. Their drinks finished. I ordered 3 more. So conversation. He goes, this is Tino Asprilla. He was having he was doing really well at Newcastle. So I'm handing out all these knickknacks, unbeknown to me that God bless his soul, what happened to Escobar after that tournament. I was there for Baggio's penalties, the final. It was crazy times. And I would see Romario again at a training, but no interview. But he would looked at me. He comes over. He goes, "You have more?" I gave him 3 or 4 more. He was probably giving them out to me. These are little things, but like the video to Sir Bobby Robson, these are things that triggers memory. That they remember. But for me, it's like I look back at it and think, what was I thinking? But that to them was so cool because they'd never seen that before or realised it. And the one thing in all that journey, and as I said to Shearer, the farewell night, I said, Alan, we're in that hotel here in Sydney and at Star. And I said, look, tonight, mate, you're going to have a night off from Andy Paschalidis. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm not going to sit on the table with the main table. He goes, you should, mate. Blah, blah, blah. I can't do the accent. But, I've always been humble with anything I do in football. I've always treated everyone equally. I don't think, and I think when you're honest and open, it does make you susceptible to being used. Some people look at it as a weakness. In my journey in the media, could I have been tougher and a little bit more assertive and protective of my position? Yes. You think of that cut from Fox And then A-League starts.
Mm.
My journey just hit a roadblock, but it's kicked off again in the last few years in India. It's difficult on reflection, but then I think about it. I go, how lucky am I?
Yeah.
Look where I've been. Look what I've done. I've been to World Cups, FA Cups, European Championships. I've called some iconic games in Australian football at club and international level.
There's one thing that I want to talk about, and I think this is a fantastic initiative that you're doing at grassroots level. It's your charity. It's the heartbeat of football. So tell us what sparked that initiative, and because you're heavily involved in getting life-saving equipment to local suburban football grounds. So talk to me about Heartbeat of Football.
Oh, look, what basically triggered it in 2014, there was just these incidents of heart attacks, cardiac arrests in football, players dying of all ages, not just seniors, from teenagers to Bankstown here in the State League, an iconic club in that State League, Kodju Jasu, died of a heart attack at their ground. And he was 24. Then my teammate died at Richardson in our over 35s game. And there was no defib. There was no mechanisms in place to react, to take steps to try and save someone's life, or give them absolutely every chance you could. So then I started looking at what was happening out there, and I realised that a lot of clubs didn't have defibs. I realised that we were way, way behind in terms of the safety and well-being of footballers. And, those first 3 years, we lost 15 footballers and saved 3. And then we lost 3 footballers and saved 14. But then we saw a spike at the end of last year where 3 players died. But this year we had 5 heart attack incidents in New South Wales. All 5 were saved. A defibrillator was there for 4 of them. The 5th one, the defibrillator wasn't working, but he was still saved. In Melbourne, Jess Amato was playing futsal. Is it the Whitten indoor facility there around Lakeside? Is there a futsal facility?
Yes, there is.
I think that's where Jess Amato collapsed. He's only a 21-year-old. They couldn't find the defibrillator. So there's a whole process here. Firstly, we need defibs at every ground. The defib talks to you. You don't have to be trained, but you've got to have effective CPR. With a CPR and a defibrillator in a cardiac arrest, the chance of survival is up to 70%. Without a defibrillator, it's around 5%.
Wow.
Now, 2 things happen. John Aaron was the first in Victoria to roll out defibs. He spent 3.7 million. New South Wales followed with 4 million. Now, I can't stress the importance of having a defib at every sporting ground. Not just football's the catalyst, because we have more incidents, because we have more senior players playing.
Yep.
So up here, I've been part of government initiatives. I've been a loud voice to the point where FIFA set up a cardiac death registry unit as part of their medical, and Dr. Florian Egger contacted me as part of a 3-man team, and they looked at a report globally into what happens. And they've identified my charity and a charity in Italy as 2 preeminent in this space of heart health awareness and change. What I do now, working with Victor Chang, I've got a meeting with the Heart Foundation tomorrow. I've already had one with them, a Zoom. I'm doing another Zoom tomorrow. I want a heart health round of football next year, right across the board.
Okay.
And I will bang my head against the Football Australia doors to get this across the line. If not, I'll go underneath at the base of the pyramid, which is the pyramid is here, and that's grassroots football. That's what keeps us sustainable. Our model, as we know, is not like other sports. It's the money that comes through there that filters all the way to the top. So I will do what I have to do to change. The testing that we do with Victor Chang is unique. We take your blood pressure, we take a blood sample, we tell you your blood sugar and your cholesterol levels on the spot. It's like going to the GP and doing a blood test. We do it at the ground while you're there. This year, up until the lockdown, like so many, we're hamstrung, we can't continue the testing. It's risen from 25% to 38% of people that have been tested have been advised to go to their GP. There is one guy who did the test. He lost his friend who thought he had a heartburn for 4 weeks and was taking Alka-Seltzer, but it was the oncoming of a cardiac arrest. And sadly, we lost Jason Connolly, who has National League and State League experience. But his friend, Chris Minnow, who set up the Jason Connolly Memorial Cup, I said, mate, get tested. He finally got tested, sat with his results, didn't react quickly, but finally woke up to it. Bypass surgery.
Wow.
So what it tells me is there's a lot of people out there, particularly with lockdown, inactivity.
Yeah.
When you resume, and let's be honest, a lot of us think we're still 18.
Yeah, you got the white line fever. You run out there. You think you're up to it. Yeah, this is a great initiative. I just want to applaud you for that. Those efforts.
No, I appreciate it. But you know what? Ultimately, what would be an even better model? Two things. Seniors football, cut it down to 60 minutes. Secondly, all over 35 players. When you get your registration, you can only get registered if you visited your GP within 3 months of the season starting for a checkup.
Great. Yeah, great idea. And these are the simple governance things as the,
Sash,
great issues.
You know what, mate? At the end of the day, when senior players go play their Sunday morning or Sunday arvo footy or Saturday, you go there, you have a run around, you relive glory days, you laugh, you joke, you have your beer or 2 or 3, but you're all meant to go home.
Yep.
I see the pain. I deal with who's directly affected by it. And when players like John Aloisi, Chris Kalantzis, Mark Kouzis have had heart surgery. George Hanyotis played for West Adelaide, Sydney Olympic, played in Asia, played for the Socceroos. Poor George died of cardiomyopathy. He had a heart attack in his sleep. They laid him to rest just over a week ago.
Yep.
So what does that tell you? You know, you got fit athletes, non-drinkers, non-smokers. Now, you know, after their football career is finished, that require. And John is going to be an ambassador, actually, at the Heart Foundation. And you need voices like that. So Greg Page from the Wiggles and I converse quite a bit. There's a lot of people that are directly affected. Heart disease is the biggest killer.
Yep. Great initiative. Today's been a fantastic conversation. We've relived a lot of my youth and through your commentary. Your voice has been sorely missed for many, many years. And really that testimony you did for Raleigh last year was fantastic tribute, fantastic show. I look forward to hearing your ideas about what's coming up with this grassroots football, and let's hope it gets picked up by a major outlet here in Australia.
It will, my friend, and imagine if I could do some reflective pieces with some of the key people in the game from the last 20 or 30 years, and I think on Paramount on their secondary channel, it'll be a no-brainer, really. But in the meantime, India is calling me this week to go back, and I could be heading back as early as November. Ideally, you'd love to work within your own backyard, but I tell you, the loyalty that they have shown me, the love that they've provided me, and the friendships that I've made, and that's what I love about football. It's a motto that I have at my little grassroots club, Sans Souci FC, here in St George Association, which is a famous area of Sydney, and Forest Rangers, my other club. We have a motto. It's all about the memories, friends for life. And that's what football brings. And football, that round piece of leather, it transcends all nationalities, all colours, all religions. That's what I love about the game. As soon as you throw a ball out there, who gives a rat's ass what your nationality is or what your political beliefs are, what your religion is? You want to play football because that's what the game does. It brings us all together.
Oh, brilliant. Wise words. Andy Paschalidis, thank you so much, sir. And
you say it better than most.
yes. So
or past the olives, as my Aussie mates call me.
Fantastic. Andy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sash.
Hey guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button? And have a fantastic day.